Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been quite a while. It's been 4 months. School was a thing. It's now over. Passed all my exams. Woot. So summertime, I'd like to be making some more videos. So hopefully I'll be making more videos over the summer. I'd like to make Java videos as well as more C# videos and maybe C or C++ videos. Should be a good time. As well as uploading some programming VODs if I do some live streams over the summer too. Got some plans. May or may not follow through with all of them, but it would be cool to be able to do that. So today we're going to be looking at setting up a C and C++ basic setup in Visual Studio Code, setting it up with tasks and a launch.json. C and C++ in this are extremely similar, very, very similar. So pretty much the only difference is going to be the compiler. C is usually GCC. C++ is usually G++. On Windows, there's going to be a little bit of a difference when you get to start doing threads and stuff in C, just because of the way that the C compilers are different on Windows and Linux. But most of this should be pretty much the same. And if you're on Mac, Mac uses GCC as well. So Mac is basically identical to Linux because they're both Unix systems. So anyways, as you can see here, we have the extension C/C++ by Microsoft installed and enabled. You're going to need this to create the tasks, or at least generate the tasks with the custom generator, as well as set paths. If you're on Windows, we'll get to that. There may be some issues with your includes, but we'll get there eventually. I also have a terminal open up just in case. And I have my workspace open. It is C_CPP setup. And if I show the current working directory, it's just a folder that I have open. So to continue on, we will go ahead and we will create a new file. We'll call it, let's say main.c. Start out with a C file. We'll do #include. We will do stdio.h, and we will create a main method, int main, int argc char *arg v. All right, now if you're on Windows and you have a red squiggly line under your include here, the Windows include paths may not be set like automatically. You may have not set those in your environment path for your system. So what you can do is when you have the C or C++ extension installed, you can hit Control-Shift-P on a Windows machine or Linux machine. On Mac, I think it is Command-Shift-P, and we'll open this menu up here. And you can go to C/C++ Edit Configurations UI, and it will open up this little UI here. Now the configuration name, if you're on Windows, obviously pick Win32. If you're on Mac, pick Mac. If you're on Linux, pick Linux. I'm on Linux, so we're going to pick Linux. The compiler path, this is what you set your compiler path to. So if you're using GCC, you want to set it to, if you're using MinGW or Cygwin or whatever the Cygwin path is, or whatever the MinGW path is to GCC, you want to put it here. Any compiler arguments you have, you can put here. IntelliSense modes, I'm going to set mine to GCC 64 because that's the default for Linux, even though it's defaulting me to Mac. Anyways, so you have your include path here. You can set your includes here to the include folder directory for whatever you're using, MinGW or Cygwin. Or you can, in Windows, if you hit the Windows key and you search environment variables and then hit enter, inside of there, you should be able to, in your path, put in the include directory in your path. You can also, in this UI, set the C standard as well as the C++ standard. I'm going to leave them the way they are right now, but you can pick, C18 if you wanted to, or C++ 20 if you wanted to get the most updated stuff. But yeah, once you're done with this, you can exit out, and you'll notice that you now have a cpp properties.json file. You can also manually type in the include paths in this include array. Just make sure you put a comma since it is an array. And that's that. So that should fix any of your red squigglies you have in Windows. So in our main, we'll go ahead and type a hello world message. We'll type printf hello world from C. We'll do /n, and there we go. So there's our C file. Now, how do we compile it? Well, you can come down here and you can type, gcc, whatever, blah, 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 in the terminal. But if you want to use a task, which we're going to need to run through VSCode anyways, we will go ahead and do Control-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P again. Come in here, type in tasks or search configure task, hit enter. Disregard there are task errors. I don't know why that's deciding to show up today. Maybe it's a bug within the current version of the extension, but everything seems to be working anyway, so we will disregard that for right now. Now we have two options of tasks to create. We have a C/C++ auto-generated one, GCC build active file. That's to build the current file that we have open and selected within our editor. You can do that if you only have one file. If you have a multi-file project, you may not want to do that one. You may want to do a custom one. So we will pick from another template, and we will come all the way down to others. We will select the others example, and it will create us with a blank, absolutely blank task.json. So our new task, we're going to call it build C, because we're going to be building some C code. We're going to leave it as a type shell because it's going to be running in a terminal. And the command here is going to be our compiling command. So what you would normally type in the terminal, you're going to type here. So GCC is going to be our command. Now, we want to give our command some arguments. So we're going to go down and select arguments. Now we're going to add some arguments. We're going to add -G to make the output debuggable, which means it's going to be stop on breakpoints when we end up running it in Visual Studio Code. So -G, and then we want to select the .c files that are in the top level directory of our folder. So it will be searching for anything within our C_CPP setup folder. Then we want to set our output, which is -O, and we want to name that to, let's say, a.out for the moment. And that will be our output file. If you're on Windows, you can also do .exe. It really doesn't make that much of a difference, I don't think. We're going to name ours a.out. So that is going to be our task command. Now we can do Control-Shift-P, and we can type in run task. And it will show up here. So we'll hit run task. Our task should show up at the top here. It's called build C. If not, you can always search for your task. It'll be whatever you named the label. We'll hit run, or we'll click on our build C, and then we're gonna just select the first option, continue without scanning the task output. Scanning the task output doesn't really do much. At least I've never needed to use scanning the output. So you'll notice that down here in our terminal, we now have, this was our command that we executed. So our gcc-g star.c-o a.out. So this compiled our C files and created a new output file that is executable called a.out. You'll also notice we have our new file called a.out over here. Now, if we open a new terminal, that means if we ls and see all the files we now have our a.out, we can do /a.out on Linux or Mac, and it will run our hello world from C. On Windows, you could probably do, if you're in PowerShell, you could probably still do ./a.exe or a.out or whatever you called it. It'll probably work the same way. So yeah, that's a C setup with a task. Now say you wanted to run it with Visual Studio Code and debug with the breakpoints and run it by hitting F5. Well, the way we do that is we come over to this run section over here on the left, this little debug with the triangle, and we will hit create a launch.json file. This highlighted text over here. We'll go ahead and click this, and we have a couple options. We have Node.js and we have C++. We're going to pick C++, even though it's not necessarily a C++ application. It's going to give us a GCC run application anyways. And again, we have two options: build and debug the active file. Again, we're gonna skip doing the active file because that only does the current file you have open and selected in your editor. We're gonna do the default configuration because we want, maybe multiple files or something depending on our compiling command. So now that we have a launch.json file, we're going to remove this template text from our program path. This is going to be the top level workspace folder, which is just going to be the c_cpp setup /a.out, which is going to be our a.out file over here. Now, we want to run our task first because we want to compile our code before we run it, just in case we don't have this a.out file here. Say we didn't have that there. If we tried to run the launch, it wouldn't work because the file doesn't exist. So we want to run our task first. How do we do that? Well, we have this cool little option called pre-launch task. And so we will just type in the name of our task, which is what the label was, which is build C. And there you go. So now when you run it, it will run the task first, which is compiling and creating the a.out file, and then it will go ahead and run it once it's there. Now, a couple of other options I'm going to highlight here. We have external console. If you set this to true, it should create an external console outside of VSCode and run your code. I prefer it to be in VSCode, like within the thing down here. So I'm going to leave it as false. And then I'm going to, because I don't want it to run from the debug console here, I want to run it from the terminal. I'm going to set the internal, let's get some IntelliSense, internal console options, set that to never open. Now, if you're wondering how I'm auto-completing so fast, just hit the tab key and auto-completes whatever selection you're on. So we have our pre-launch task set, we have our program path set, our external console set, and our internal console options set. So now we can save all those things, and now theoretically we should be able to come over here and press F5. So press F5, it will run the task and it will print it. Again, disregard this, probably a bug in the current extension, but as you can see, it worked. It created our file. If we come back over here, we can see our a.out file, or we can ls and we can see our a.out file. So it created it first and then it ran it, and here it is. So that is a basic C file created in Visual Studio Code. Now, say we want to do C++, C is old, may want to have some cool stuff from C++. C is kind of the golden standard. A lot of people like C, but you like C++ more because games. All right, we'll go ahead and create a new main.cpp file. C++, here we come. All right, so we will do include iostream. Now, if you have the red squigglies here, you should basically do the same thing you did on Windows. If you're on Linux or Mac, you probably won't have the red squigglies issue because the include path should be already set within your system by default. But if you're on Windows and your include path isn't set for C++, whatever you did for GCC or the C version, whether you did the environment variables or you set it in the UI or manually in the C++ properties.json file, you basically do the same thing, except for whatever the C++ include is, if you're using MinGW or Cygwin, whichever one you decide to use. So with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and create a int main int argc char *argv. And yeah, so we will go ahead and do std cout hello world from C++. And we will do std and l. All right, so there's our C++ code. Now, if we were to hit F5, it would just run our C code. It wouldn't run our C++ code. So what we have to do is, again, we have to basically duplicate everything we've done so far, except for C++. So we have to come in here. We'll create a new task. So we will copy this original task, create a comma, and paste our task. And we want to differentiate our tasks, right? So we want to create a new task. We'll call it build CPP because we want to create a new C++ application. Now the compiler for C++ is not GCC, it's G++. We're going to go ahead and change the command from GCC to G++. And then what we want to do is we want to change this to look for C files, we want to change it to look for CPP files. And what that'll do is that we'll look for the high directory, the highest directory, which is just in our C_CPP setup folder. And it'll try and find any file with the CPP extension. And then we'll go ahead and just for clarity's sake, we will name our output file a_cpp.out. So that way we can differentiate between our C out file and our CPP out file. So there's our new task for C++. And then to launch it again, we want to launch our C++ application. So we'll create a new launch type. And now because we have two launches, we don't want them to have the same name. So we will rename this to launch C, and we will have this one launch CPP. Now these are just names. You can name these whatever. It does not matter at all what you name those. Now we don't want to compile our C code before running our C++ code. So we want to change our pre-launch task to our build CPP task. And then our output file isn't going to be called a.out. We don't want to run our C code. We want to run our CPP code. So we're going to rename that to our acpp.out file. Now everything else stays the same. We can hit save. Now before you hit F5, make sure that you change which launch you want to run. When you create multiple launch setups in the configurations array, it will show up in this drop down here. So we're going to launch our C++ code. So we'll set that to CPP. We can come back to our C++ code. Now we don't have to be within this file. We can hit F5 from anywhere and it should run the C++ code, but we'll go back into our code and we will press F5. Again, disregarding the task errors pop up. And as you can see here, we have hello world from C++. So there is our C++ code. Now, breakpoints. We will go ahead and run. We'll set a breakpoint right here and we'll hit F5 again. And you'll notice, boom, it stops on the breakpoint. So now you can debug your code with breakpoints. Your C and C++ code in Visual Studio Code works the same in C. Now, the thing that allows this to happen is that the executable file, this out file, has the debug flag enabled because of our compiling command. So this -g here is what gives the file the debugging capabilities. If you leave out this -g, if you do not include this -g in your compiling command, breakpoints will not work. You can still debug with F5, you can still run it with F5, but the breakpoints will not work. Any breakpoints you set, it will not stop on the breakpoints. So that's pretty much it for setting up C and C++ applications for VS Code. Now you can always modify these tasks to run a makefile instead if you have a large C++ file or directory, very large C++ project, and you have a makefile. You can set this to run make instead of compiling the code through a command. And you can set this to rename that and set your pre-launch task to your make task, and you'll be good to go. Just make sure that your make compile command has -g if you want to run and debug with breakpoints. So yeah, that's that. Anything else outside of that, we'll go ahead and delete our out files. We'll go ahead and delete our C file. We'll stick with CPP for the moment. Say you wanted to organize your directory a little bit more, so we'll go ahead and create a new folder, call it source, and we'll put our main.cpp in source, and then we'll create not in source, create a new folder called out, and our output will be in out, our source will be in source. So the way that we need to run this now is we need to go back into our tasks. And we need to change our CPP task. We need it to look in the current workspace folder /source/any CPP file. And we want to change our output to the current workspace folder /out/acpp.out. Now our launch stays the same because we're still running the task before we are running. Actually, no, it does not. Excuse me. It does not stay the same. It does change. So we want to, because we put our output file in a new folder, we want to do /out. So now it knows that our output file is within our out folder. You go ahead and save, hit F5. It should build the task and run it. And you can see, here we go. We have it there. In our out folder, we have our acpp.out. We can ls, we see ls source, see our main CPP, ls out, and there's our acpp.out. So that's it. Honestly, that's pretty much it. Anything else is really up to you. How you organize your code is fully up to you. All the folders and directories and stuff is all up to you. Everything is configured through tasks. You can have as many tasks as you want in here. You can have as many different launch options as you want. So you have multiple different C++ tasks with different optimization codes, or different launches with those different optimization codes, etc. So it really leaves a lot up to you and however you want to set up your application. But that's it. If you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I will do my best to get to any questions you may have and try and help you out. Like I said, if you're on Windows, there may be a little bit of differences with C and C++ because Microsoft does some wonky stuff with C with their own implementation of things. Most problems are generally a quick Google or DuckDuckGo away. You can kind of just look up the error code or whatever and find the solution on, say, Stack Overflow or something. But that's gonna be it for me for now. Hopefully I will upload the how to set up a Java environment in VS Code pretty soon. But yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your time. Hopefully you're okay in this whole situation that the world is in right now. Some wild times, some weird times. So if you're stuck inside and coding away like me, then hopefully you'll enjoy this little tutorial with setting up C and C++. Maybe you wanted to try C for the first time and you wanted to use VS Code. So hopefully this helps. Yeah, I will stop rambling and let you get on to code in C and C++. Adios.